Can we please put a warm welcome and a big round of applause for Sundip Singh?
Thank you, Mario. Very good morning to all of you. 8 a.m. in the morning, and it's quite full. Yeah, that's great. Let me kick off with a data and an insight, if you may. Like many of you, I also end up spending more nights out in hotel rooms in different parts of the world than back at home. And the insight, of course, is, well, that leads to some very interesting conversations with my wife back. But it does allow me to go to different parts of the world and cue the image that you see around. Many of you will recognize that is Beijing in China, one of the more fascinating cities that I've had an opportunity to go all around. Those two images coexist harmoniously. The old, if you may, the legacy. There are 7 UNESCO heritage sites in China, in Beijing, as we speak, along with the skyscrapers and the bullet trains that we've all seen, listened, read about. What I find intriguing is not that both of them seem to be together at a point in time. It is the fact that in some ways, the harmony between the two is driven by the fact that it is the old which in some ways has shaped the new. That, the leverage of the past coming in to go ahead and really go out into the new is something that I find very interesting. But when you overlay the fact that this is not just one transformation that Beijing as a city has seen. Beijing has been the capital of China for the last 700 years, so as is a want in every capital city, typically you get exposed to the new and the shiny and the modern first. So over 700 years across each and every time that the new of that era has come into place, Beijing has found a way to go ahead and keep respecting its legacy. And while doing that, going ahead and embracing the future. Is that the whole context of purposeful transformation? Is that how one should look at what transformation should mean? And that's really the context around which I'd like to go ahead and spend the remaining part of my discussion. Because at this point in time, all of us in this room, frankly, everywhere in the world, there is clarity on the fact that over the last many decades, there has never been an opportunity or a challenge that businesses are facing right now because of all that's happening around. I'll go so far to say that ever since the start of the modern computing era, we do not have this sort of an opportunity or this sort of a challenge. And this transformation is coming on the back of 2 primary axes. One is technology, absolutely. I mean, we're all here. And the technology per se is driven by, again, 2 pointers as I see it. Firstly, it's the fact that with a smartphone in everybody's hands all over the world, consumer technology is the one that is driving enterprise technology. It doesn't happen that way in terms of performance, expectation, experience. And the second is, given where sensors are, all that we read about Murphy's Law, the cost, quality, performance, that has ensured that you can now go ahead and put sensors in practically every part of the supply chain. And there is no blind spot. There is no dark corner that is not visible and cannot be measured. And that by itself is springing up so many different use cases that we, frankly, are still not able to wrap our head around. So technology is one part of it, a very big part of it. But I believe that it is the second point that is making this transformation special. And that is the fact that there is absolute conviction with all the right folks in the businesses that this is the transformation, that if you do not go ahead and find a way to be on the leading edge of this transformation, which is a winner-take-all, which is in some ways very unforgiving, you need to be fast, it will become a little bit of an existential challenge for you. The dual elements of this transformation, technology moving as fast as it is, all pervasive, and the fact that the C-level suite in all of our corporate, wherever we belong to, there is clear realization that this is the moment. And this transformation coming at the intersection, if you may, of these two, is making me believe that we are possibly trying to go ahead and find a perfect solution. The Hail Mary pass, the pass which is going to go ahead and solve all problems for us. That silver bullet answer, which is long on technology, and yes, just long on technology. And as a technology service provider, as Mario introduced me, in some ways what I'm suggesting is that technology alone is not the solution. It is the fact that unless and until we go ahead and start finding ways, finding means of looking at our own individual context, we will keep on searching for the perfect digital future. But your digital future is going to be different from your digital future, and that's going to be different from my digital future. The context is critical. Are we losing that appreciation of our individual context? Are we waiting for the digital future to suddenly evolve for each and every one of us? My submission is that we should start looking for our own specific digital future. And hence the journey is not about going into some holy utopian land, which is the same for each and every one of us, but it is actually about our own digital future. And once, and if we start realizing that my digital future is going to be different from yours, a lot of things start falling in place. We start realizing the fact that, hey, there are some advantages that we bring to the table. For a current organization that has a history, so to speak, there is a brand that we have built. There is access to the clients that we have. There is financial muscle that we have. And all of that is the strength, is the context. And once you take cognizance of that context, then you wrap the technology layer around it, where technology, absolutely critical, no doubt, is not the means. It's not the end, but it is the means to the end. And that's a fundamental change which we are suggesting needs to take place as organizations increasingly go ahead and try to find what their digital future should go ahead and look like. Hence, being respectful of the past, embracing the future on the platform of technology is the context around which we at Infosys are moving forward. And this message is resonating extremely strongly across the board, because now you're talking about finding your own customized path towards the next. And when you go ahead and do that, when you start going and focusing and investing and valuing your own brownfield environment, and each one of us has it, at that point in time, you start realizing that you have a lot of advantages compared to others, startups or upstarts who might be wanting to go ahead and join in. I mean, let's take an example. I mean, in the IoT world, if you have a given product, and the product needs to go and you just put any platform with a vanilla data scientist on top of it and start expecting some insights to come in that will allow you to, again, relook at your product design itself, my submission is that you will not get too much really coming out of it. But if you were to go ahead and value that context, if you were to really understand the physics of the product, understand what exactly goes into the manufacturing shop floor for that given product, and then wrap your head around it, then the context fundamentally changes. We have always found that when it comes to brownfield environments, which is the environment that all of us live, thrive, and have to live and thrive in, it is important to look back and then only look forward. I'll give you another important, in our mind, the value that we bring by going forward on the back of your past. And it is what I am increasingly seeing in the world today, where we are talking about the digital future, the Internet of Things. I call it death by 1,000 pilots. And what I mean by that is we are finding more and more organizations trying to go ahead and do pilots in different parts of the organization. But that pilot is not catching fire. That pilot is not getting embraced in a fundamental manner. The reason, if you were to double-click on that, is because the existing legacy shop floor engineer is not willing to suddenly find or realize that there is some technology solution that is going to go ahead and change his world, that what he has been doing for the last 20 to 30 years. If we start going and embracing our context, then the way the pilots will come up will also change. You will realize that in a given context, a pilot makes sense because that's where you get more bang for the buck. And only then will that pilot, if successful, can then be evangelized across the entire organization. Once we have that core aspect right, then we leapfrog into the technology piece. And again, digital, if you were to ask the person sitting next to you, I'm sure you're going to get one definition of digital as compared to the other, which is fair. But for us at Infosys, we, again, believe very strongly that when you're embracing technology, you need to factor in 5 different components that need to come together. I will say this, most of us, that our clients that we have experienced, they seem to be putting an inordinate focus on the experience axis, which is critical, it's important, but that is not all. If you have to provide that experience given the smartphone that each one of us has, the end consumer who's using the service, that end consumer should also be confident that it is a secure transaction. Therefore, assurance becomes a very critical part of this entire experience. Not only that, it needs to be something which is agile, which is fast. You cannot go ahead and rip apart the technology which is sitting in the legacy and start hoping that there will be some major capex investment that will go ahead and get done. So you'll have a net new IT infrastructure come in. You have to find ways of re-architecting the old legacy ecosystem. And that is what is going to go ahead and accelerate this entire digital journey. Once we have that part of it right, only then do you start leapfrogging into the innovation axis rather than jumping straight into the innovate axis. Only then do you start talking about digital product engineering or a virtual platform, because now you have a solid foundation. And once you have that, data starts coming in, and instead of performing analytics, you actually go ahead and start giving meaningful insights. Before I move on, I will go ahead and say this. This is something what we at Infosys spend a lot of time on. As a technology company, it becomes, in some ways, second nature to start believing that everything starts and ends with technology. But when we were thinking about this strategy, and as we spoke to our clients, we realized that it is not about the technology, as I mentioned earlier. It is about the fact of the value that you're providing to the end client. So we are not talking that we have a cyber security practice. We have to ensure that the transaction is secure. There's assurance that we are talking about. We are not talking about an analytics practice. It doesn't matter. What we are going ahead and talking about the fact is that there is meaningful insight. We are not talking about legacy infrastructure, and you need to go ahead and find a way of ripping apart your architecture and providing something new. We are going ahead and saying, change the architecture and allow it, the same architecture, if that is a decision being made, to allow it to become more agile so you can accelerate the entire experience. It's important, it is critical to start looking at things from the client's point of view as to what value are they going to go ahead and get by going down this particular journey. I'll walk you through a few examples where we have gone ahead and taken this context, the context of appreciating the context, and then wrapping technology around it so we can appreciate the value that the clients are seeing and why this message is resonating as strong as it is. I will not bore you with the fact that we came up with an IoT platform for one of our clients in the automotive segment. I think ThingWorks does a fantastic job, and one can leverage it. There are 1,000 industrial IoT platforms that are sitting there. Yes, we help our clients in the journey, but where I'm going with this particular case study is the fact that in a given brownfield environment, and this has happened in Europe on the shop floor, where you have hundreds of spindle machines which are going ahead and helping the clients in the entire assembly process. We were asked to look into finding the remaining useful life from a conditional monitoring perspective. And I know that there have been many case studies out there. Why I want to call this out and what I would like to really dwell upon is the fact that this particular environment has to be a partner ecosystem. It is not that a given organization, in this case Infosys, can come in and provide an end-to-end solution. In this particular case, we were asked to work with the technology provider, and we came up with a solution which was a retrofitted solution so that the warranty of the technology provider does not get voided. It's important to understand that you cannot go ahead and suddenly start coming up and putting sensors that will in some ways play around with the fundamental premise of the brownfield environment, because then it does not make sense. Then it does not allow you to move forward. But what we had to do, understanding what the brownfield environment was, we had to then go ahead and put the sensors in a retrofitted manner so that it does not have any impact on the existing warranties of the system. This, to go back to my earlier point, was a use case that we came up with using design thinking, sitting on the shop floor, not sitting in some corporate block, where the shop floor engineers came up with this problem. And that's the reason why we attacked this problem in a very small way to begin with. Size is not the important part when you're starting off the pilot. We made it successful. We made the actual shop floor engineers go ahead and talk about the success across. And what started off with one particular line in one factory has now moved over to 10 factories in Europe. The next one, this is related to one of the largest CPG companies globally. And this case study is around the brownfield environment and providing factory visibility across the board. As all of us will appreciate, tremendous amount of investments have gone in over a period of years, decades, on coming up with different, if you may, technology solutions. And all of them coexist out in the ecosystem. Our job was to come up with a platform, a standard platform, that will allow some clear business metrics to be met. The first thing that we did is we went down the fact of first coming up with a standard platform that will take in inputs across these different technology solutions, be it the MES system, be it the historian, the PLCs. Because working along with Architect in Germany, we have come up with a maturity index, which PTC is also a part of. That first states that go forward, you have to first come up with a solution that allows for visibility to take place. Only after that can you start looking at transparency. Only after that do you look at predictability, and then only adaptability. But the first step, going back to the basics, is visibility. So you need to come up with one platform. That's what we did. We came up with the first platform. We went ahead, we established that base, then we did a gap analysis on the process side of the house. And what I'm explaining to you, I feel what's happening is, in our zest to embrace technology, the shiny, soon and fast, these basic principles are possibly getting lost. Baselining, doing a gap analysis, having a phased manner of moving forward. But that's what we did. And over the last 2 years, in terms of results that we have found in this given brownfield environment, is that the average downtime of a given machine has come down by 25 minutes in a month. The waste has actually gone down by 12% in production. It has come down by 10% when it comes to the packaging material, and the finished good waste has actually come down by 5%. But most importantly, for me, I still find it very difficult to believe that the OEE of this plant has gone up from 72% to 80%, which, as you all will understand, is a very meaningful number. But it went back to the fact that we understood the context. We did not go ahead and throw out the legacy. We did not go ahead and say that, we've got to go ahead and rip it all apart and come up with a new architecture and infrastructure. The fact is that the brownfield environment exists. We are the ones using technology that needs to come up with a platform that will standardize and go in a step-by-step manner. This third one is in the utilities segment. And when it comes to water management in the utilities segment, it is the way it works is that there are reservoirs of water, and then you need to keep on pumping the water into the homes, depending on and there are many variables, the season, holiday season or not, the time of day, the temperature per se. And the biggest challenge that the utilities companies faces is when should they go ahead and pump more so that the demand and supply are together. You should not go ahead and keep on pumping without really having an idea on what the demand is going to be, because then the asset per se, which the pump in this case, is just going to, the useful life is just going to come down for that reason. So if you can come up with a correlation between the time of day and the day and how much water needs to get into the system, it has a material impact on the useful life of the given asset. Now, so we had to go ahead and come up with an algorithm that would allow us to get to a 95% plus correlation between the demand and what we were pumping, which was 6 percentage points more than what our client had been able to go ahead and get. And not only was it for a day perspective, where you have a larger data set, it was for an hourly perspective. We've come up with a number. The client's very happy. We are north of 95% when it comes to the daily piece. For a given hour, we are still variation to 3.8% from where we should be, but the client's just delighted with what they have got because it's so much of an advantage for them. But where I want to take this conversation is that this is an opportunity for a technology service provider like Infosys to go and sit with the client and seek a seat at the table by saying, if I'm able to give you a correlation of 95%, then at that point in time, give me the money. If I am not, then frankly, you're not gaining any benefit. Neither should we. That whole construct of a partner ecosystem needs to now become part of the dialogue. The expectation from businesses like you for all the service providers. Because if we have the necessary nous when it comes to technology, and we understand the domain, because without that, frankly, we will never be able to get here, then we should be able to put our money where our mouth is and get the correlation when you want. When you get the benefit, we get the benefit, and we can construct different models. So that's the way in which we are going ahead and engaging in this transformation opportunity as we come together. I will leave you with this last final thought. It is not that this transformation opportunity, big as it is, huge as it is the only transformation opportunity that any one of us is going to see in our lifetimes. My submission is that the pace as well as the frequency of such transformation opportunities is going to increase fundamentally. What we are trying to do is not to find a solution to somehow embrace this particular transformation opportunity or challenge, and then we can just rest easy. That's not how it's going to operate. There will be many such opportunities or challenges. We will have to go ahead and embrace each one of them and stay ahead and win in those turns. Because if we don't, then in that particular turn, we will find ourselves behind, and the ship will move forward very fast. I go back to the point about Beijing. 700 years, they continue to find a way to keep on being on the right side of the transformation. And they did that on the template of respecting the past, building on it, and moving forward. What I'll leave behind with all of you is that we have to go and always keep on respecting our context and then embrace the future. And if we can do that, then we will always win in the turns. Thank you very much.